Hey, welcome back to another episode of Donn Bennett's Drum Vault. Actually, welcome back to another episode of Donn Bennett's Drum Vault where you're not going to see any drums. So I don't know if you watched a recent episode where we talked about an entire collection of guitars we got from Brad Whitford of Aerosmith. Well, that whole production went so well that Tom Hamilton, the bass player in Aerosmith, found out about it, and next thing you know, we're looking at a massive collection of Tom Hamilton's Aerosmith basses, guitars, and amps. We received about 120 guitars, basses, and amps from Tom, and there's some really amazing stuff in here. This is stuff he's used since Aerosmith's earliest days, since the 70s. I mean, the amount of history on this stuff is absolutely insane. There's a ton of basses and guitars, some basses and guitars from some really pivotal periods of Aerosmith's history. Here's just a few of them. I think we got there's about 70 guitars and basses. This is a Parker Fly bass. Tom was instrumental in the design and creation of this bass. He had a lot of his input went into making of it. This is an original 1960s Hofner Beetle bass. This is the one he played at the Super Bowl halftime show in Tampa. It was also on a couple of album covers. A lot of history on that bass. Possibly the most interesting bass in the collection. There's actually three of these, three late 70s Man Stingray basses, all in the sunburst finish. This was kind of Tom's go-to bass right there when Aerosmith was going crazy. About the time that Draw the Line was coming out. They're massive, they're touring all over the world. This is actually one you can see a video from the 1978 Texas Jam. I mean, a massive, massive concert. This is the actual bass he plays there. There are three of these. There's two 77s and one 1979 version of this Stingray bass. But yeah, Tom really helped put this bass on the map. This kind of became the go-to rock and roll bass of the era, and I mean, it's still a very, very popular bass. Tom had a long history with the Sadowski Guitar Company. Roger Sadowski made this bass for Tom specially after a conversation he had with his tech, where his tech told him, you know, Tom always plays all your basses with all the controls cranked all the way up. So Roger made him this bass with no controls, with everything. There are actually controls in the back of the bass, in the compartment where you can actually adjust them, but there's nothing that you see here. Kind of a special one that was made as a gift for Tom. This is a Fender Jazz reissue. So in the very earliest days of Aerosmith, that was the bass you'd see Tom playing, was an original Fender Jazz bass. This is a 1990s reissue of that actual bass. Now, in 1991, Aerosmith made an MTV video for one of their major hits, Sweet Emotion. Now, obviously, when that came out in the early 70s, there was no MTV. So when they made the video in 1991, Tom got this reissue of his original bass, and that's the bass you will see in that video, and he also used it on albums and gigs during that period. And then over here, there is another Sadowski. This is a Sadowski Metro 5-string bass. He got this in about 2012. Now, he played an identical model since the late 90s, and it was in 2012 his tech found this one in Australia and bought it so he would have a backup. And then you'll see him playing this live quite a bit. Actually, there's a a huge video live in 2014 from Donington at a major festival where you'll see him playing this actual bass. Still got the gaffer tape keeping the volume at 11, undoubtedly. So that's just a small sample of the basses and guitars that we got. I mean, we got basses and guitars from BC Rich, Chapman, Dan Electro, G&L, Gibson, Guild, Martin, and lots more. Then there's also a massive collection of Tom's amp rigs. We have complete amp rigs, again, going way back to the 70s, complete Ampeg, Aguilar, GK, Hartkey, entire stage rigs, plus a lot of individual pieces. Up here is most of his GK collection. He used various configurations of GK. This configuration is the original configuration that he designed together with GK. You'll actually see Aerosmith this fall on what they're calling their Peace Out tour. One would imply Peace Out means their final tour, but you know how those final tours go. Hopefully they're gonna be around for a long time, because I mean, I can barely remember a time in my life where Aerosmith wasn't part of it. I mean, since I was in middle school, there's been Aerosmith, and they've always been important. They've always been dangerous. They've always been edgy. They've always been controversial, and they've always made incredible rock and roll. And it is so cool to be standing here amongst all this cool stuff. Check out the website. You're gonna get your mind blown by all this stuff, plus some other really cool treasures that came out of Tom's wardrobe. All right, until the next episode, check it out, and we'll see you very soon.